Beloved, listen to me. There are moments in life when everything seems to be falling apart. The prayers you prayed are still unanswered. The doors you knocked on remain closed, and heaven feels silent. You begin to wonder, God, where are you? Have you forgotten me? But let me tell you this, in the authority of the Word of God, He is not finished. God is fixing it right now, even when you cannot see it. Sometimes the greatest evidence of His presence is not in the miracle, but in the waiting. You say, but I've been waiting too long. Oh, my friend, Abraham waited. Joseph waited. David waited. Even Jesus waited for His hour to come. And in every waiting, God was working. Every delay was a design. Every silence was preparation. So today, as we walk through these truths, remember this. God's delay is not His denial, and when you cannot see His hand, you must still trust His heart. The fire you are walking through, the tears you've cried, the people who've left you, and the tombs you've stood before, all of it is part of His holy plan. He is not destroying you. He is defining you. He is not punishing you. He is positioning you. He is fixing it right now. Trust Him. God's delay is not God's denial. Habakkuk 2:3, for the vision is yet for an appointed time, but at the end it shall speak and not lie. Though it tarry, wait for it, because it will surely come. It will not tarry. Habakkuk 2:3, there are moments when it feels like heaven has gone silent, when the prayers that once carried fire now fall back to the ground with no answer. You cry, but the walls echo your pain. You wait, but nothing seems to change. You look up and whisper, God, have you forgotten me? But listen, child of God, His delay is not His denial. The God who spoke the universe into existence does not operate by your clock. His timing is not measured in minutes or months, but in eternity. He is not slow. He is sovereign. When God delays, it is never because He is uncertain. It is because He is preparing. The waiting is not punishment. It is preparation. What you see as delay, heaven calls divine design. Think of Joseph, betrayed by his brothers, sold as a slave, and forgotten in a prison. Year after year he waited. It must have seemed like God had abandoned him. But behind those prison walls, God was writing a story that would one day save nations. When the time came, Pharaoh sent for Joseph, and in one day the prisoner became the prince. You see, God could have delivered Joseph at any moment, but not just any moment would have revealed His glory. He delayed until the perfect time, so that His power, His wisdom, and His purpose would all come together in a single act of redemption. That's how God works. When He delays, it's not because He's forgotten, it's because He's aligning everything to display His glory. Many believers give up in the delay. They mistake waiting for abandonment. But the waiting place is often the most sacred place in the Christian walk. It's where God teaches you to trust Him, not for the outcome, but for who He is. It's where your roots grow deeper in faith, when every visible sign says no, but your heart still says, I will wait for you, Lord. Abraham waited 25 years for a son. 25 years of believing, hoping, and fighting doubt. Why did God wait that long? Because He wanted to prove that His promise didn't depend on human strength, but on divine power. Is anything too hard for the Lord? Genesis 18:14. When God delays, He's testing your trust. He's asking, will you believe me even when I don't move on your schedule? Moses waited 40 years in the wilderness before leading Israel. David was anointed king, but spent years running for his life. Even Jesus waited 30 years in obscurity before beginning His ministry. Delay does not mean denial. It means development. Every delay in your life has purpose written all over it. God delays blessings to purify your motives. He delays answers to grow your faith. He delays breakthroughs to shape your character. And when he finally moves, it will make sense why he waited so long. There is beauty in the pause, holiness in the waiting. For in that delay, God is not doing nothing, He's doing everything. He's aligning people, shaping circumstances, softening hearts, and preparing the miracle you prayed for. If God gave you what you wanted when you wanted it, you'd miss what He was trying to make you become. He's not just fixing situations, He's forming you into the image of His Son. The waiting is not wasted, it's where you are being refined. So when heaven seems silent, remind your soul of this truth. God's delay is not His denial. He will come through, not when you expect Him, but when it glorifies Him. And when He does, every tear you cried in the waiting will shine like a diamond in His hands, testifying that He was faithful all along. When you can't see His hand, trust His heart. Proverbs 3:5-6. Trust in the Lord with all thine heart, and lean not unto thine own understanding. In all thy ways acknowledge Him, and He shall direct thy paths. Proverbs 3:5-6. There will be seasons in your life when you look around and nothing makes sense. The road you thought was straight suddenly bends into the prayers you thought would be answered by now are still hanging in the air. You reach out to touch the hand of God and you feel nothing. It's in those moments that the Lord whispers, "Trust me." You may not see His hand moving, but that doesn't mean He's not working. The unseen hand of God is stronger than any force on earth. It's the same hand that carved the rivers, set the stars in their places, and still holds your life together when everything else is falling apart. Job couldn't see God's hand. His children were gone, his health broken, his wealth destroyed. Yet Job said, "Though He slay me, yet will I trust Him." Job 13:15. That's not shallow faith, that's surrendered faith, the kind that believes God is good even when life isn't. Sometimes God hides His hand so that you'll seek His heart. He wants you to love Him, not only for what He gives, but for who He is. The test of real faith is not how loud you praise when the blessings come, but how deeply you trust when the blessings are gone. When you can't see His hand, trust His heart. Because His heart never changes. His love never weakens. His faithfulness never fails. He said, "I will never leave thee, nor forsake thee." Hebrews 13:5. You may not see the way, but the way Himself walks beside you. Sometimes God allows confusion to protect you. You think He's withholding a blessing, but in truth, He's withholding destruction. You wanted that relationship, that job, that dream, and when it slipped away, you cried. But God saw what you couldn't. His hand was moving behind the curtain, blocking the door that would have broken you. Faith is not the absence of confusion. It's the confidence that God is still in control amid it. Trust is not believing that life will always go your way. It's believing that God's way is always. We often lean on our own understanding. We try to reason, to plan, to fix, but faith begins where human logic ends. God doesn't need your understanding. He asks for your surrender. The child of God must come to the place where he says, "Lord, even if I never understand, I will still trust you." That's the moment heaven moves. That's when peace that passes all understanding floods the soul. Think of the disciples when Jesus was on the cross. They couldn't see His hand. All they saw was death. The one who healed others now hung lifeless on a tree. They thought it was over. But while they mourned on earth, God was moving in eternity. Redemption was being written in blood. When you can't see His hand, trust His heart, because His heart already proved its love at Calvary. The hands that were pierced for you will never let you go. You don't need to see how he's working. You just need to know who's working. You don't need to trace every step. You just need to trust every promise. For the God who holds the stars in place holds you even tighter. And even when his hand is hidden, his heart is always faithful. Your brokenness is the place where God builds strength. Psalm 34:18. The Lord is near to the brokenhearted and saves the crushed in spirit. Psalm 34:18. Brokenness, it's a word no one wants to experience. Yet it's the very place where God does his greatest work. The world tells you to hide your pain, to cover your scars, to pretend you're strong. But God says, bring me your broken pieces, because he does not despise the broken. He dwells among them. You see, strength in the kingdom of God is not born from pride or power. It's born from brokenness. When you come to the end of yourself, when your confidence collapses, when all your plans fall apart, that's when God begins. Because as long as you can still fix it, you will never surrender. And God will not compete with your self-sufficiency. The psalmist said, the sacrifices of God are a broken spirit. A broken and a contrite heart, O God, thou wilt not despise. Psalm 51:17. God doesn't ask for perfection. He asks for surrender. He looks not for the strong, but for the shattered, because a broken heart makes room for his grace. Moses was broken in the desert before he ever led a nation. David was broken by his sin before he ever wrote his psalms of worship. Peter was broken by his denial before he ever preached at Pentecost. Every man greatly used by God has first been greatly broken by God. Your brokenness is not a sign that God has abandoned you, it's the evidence that he's near. The Lord is not drawn to your strength, he's drawn to your need. When you weep, he listens. When you fall, he bends down to lift you. He does not stand far off waiting for you to heal. He steps into your wounds and begins to mend them himself. Sometimes God allows the breaking not to destroy you but to deliver you. Because there are things he cannot teach you on the mountain that he can only reveal in the valley. There are lessons learned in tears that can never be learned in triumph. The world celebrates the unbroken, but heaven celebrates those who are broken before God, because that's where humility is born, and humility is the soil where grace grows. God resists the proud, but gives grace to the humble. James, when you're broken, you stop pretending to be enough. You stop leaning on your own wisdom. You stop running in your own strength. And for the first time, you fall. Not into despair, but into his mercy. Sometimes what looks like breaking is really the hand of the potter shaping you. He takes the clay that cracked under pressure and remolds it with his tender fingers. It hurts, yes, but it's holy. The same hand that breaks also blesses. The same God who wounds also heals. The same God who wounds also heals. The deeper the breaking, the greater the anointing that follows. Because brokenness produces dependence, and dependence draws power. The Apostle Paul said, when I am weak, then am I strong. 2 Corinthians 12:10. That's not poetic language. That's divine reality. Strength is not found in resisting weakness, but in embracing it before the Lord. There's a sweetness in the place of surrender, when the tears fall freely, when pride dies quietly, and the heart whispers, Lord, I can't, but you can. That's the moment the heavens move. That's where resurrection begins. Your broken heart is not wasted. Your pain is not in vain. God is using every piece, every crack, every scar to reveal his glory. He turns broken vessels into living testimony. And when His light shines through your cracks, the world no longer sees you. They see Him. The silence of God is never the absence of God. Psalm 46:10, be still and know that I am God. Psalm 46:10, there are seasons when God goes silent. You pray but no answer comes. You read His word, but it feels like the words have lost their life. You worship, but the heavens feel closed. You begin to wonder, has God forgotten me? Has He turned away? But no, beloved, the silence of God is never the absence of God. The silence of God is His sacred classroom, where faith learns to listen beyond feelings. You see, when God speaks, it strengthens you. But when He's silent, it shapes you, because silence tests what speech teaches. Anyone can trust God when they hear His voice, but true faith trusts Him when He seems quiet. Think of Abraham. God promised him a son, yet for years, silence. Think of Joseph, abandoned, betrayed, imprisoned, and forgotten, silent. Think of Job, stripped of everything, surrounded by confusion, silence. Even Jesus on the cross cried, my God, why hast thou forsaken me? Matthew 27:46. Heaven was silent, but redemption was unfolding. God's silence is not rejection, it's revelation in disguise. It's not that He isn't speaking, it's that He's speaking in a language deeper than words. He's teaching you to know Him, not just hear Him. In silence, God refines your trust. He removes the noise of the world so you can recognize the whisper of His Spirit. He quiets your surroundings to reveal the noise inside your soul, your fears, your doubts, your impatience, and then He begins to still them one by one. We often think silence means inactivity, but heaven is never still. When God is silent, He is often the most active. He's moving in ways you can't see, arranging details you can't comprehend, preparing outcomes you could never imagine. Be still and know that I am God. Stillness is not inactivity, it's surrender. It's saying, Lord, even when I don't hear you, I will still trust you. Because sometimes silence is the test before the miracle. Think of the 3 days between the cross and the resurrection. Silence. The disciples were scattered. Hope was buried. The world seemed lost. But in the silence of the tomb, God was working salvation. The grave was quiet, but grace was alive. When God is silent, it's often because He's teaching you that His presence is not based on your perception. You may not feel Him, but He is closer than your breath. He said, I will never leave thee, nor forsake thee. Hebrews, silence does not break that promise. It proves it. God's silence separates the superficial believer from the surrendered one. The shallow faith says, if I don't hear Him, He's gone. But the mature faith says, even if I hear nothing, I know He is here. In silence, God makes Himself known, not to your ears, but to your heart. He deepens your roots, strengthens your patience, and teaches you that His presence is not something you feel, it's something you believe. The silence of God is holy ground. It's where you stop striving and start trusting. It's where your prayers lose words and become tears. It's where you discover that the one who seems quiet is actually holding you closer than ever before. And though the night may feel long, though heaven may seem silent, He has never been more near than right now. The same God who closed the door will open a better one. Revelation 3:8. I know thy works. Behold, I have set before thee an open door, and no man can shut it. For thou hast a little strength, and hast kept my word, and hast not denied my name. Revelation 3:8. There are moments when life brings you to a door that you thought would open, a job, a relationship, a dream, a season, and suddenly God shuts it. You knock, you plead, you push with all your heart, but the door will not move. And in the silence of that closed door, doubt begins to whisper. Maybe God isn't listening. Maybe He doesn't care. But beloved, hear this truth. The same God who closed that door is the same God who opens better ones. His hand that shuts is the same hand that saves. His no is never cruelty. It's divine protection. You see, we often judge God's goodness by how many doors He opens, but sometimes His greatest mercy is in the ones He closes, because not every open door leads to blessing. Some lead to bondage. Not every opportunity is from God. Some are from the enemy, disguised as light. When God closes a door, it's not rejection, it's redirection. He's guiding you away from what would have destroyed you, even if at the moment it feels like loss. The same hand that denied you entrance is preparing you for something eternal. The Lord told the church in Philadelphia, "I have set before thee an open door, and no man can shut it." Revelation 3:8. That means every door that belongs to your destiny cannot be locked by man. No rejection, no delay, no disappointment can keep God's purpose from finding you. What He opens, no one can close. What He closes, no one can open. Think of Paul in Acts 16. He tried to preach in Asia, but the Spirit of God forbade him. To Paul, it must have felt strange. Wasn't preaching always good? Yet God closed that door because He had a greater one, the door of Europe, where the gospel would spread to the nations. God's closed door in Asia became the open door of redemption for millions. That's how the Father works. He blocks the path, not to punish, but to protect. He interrupts your plans so He can unfold His perfect one. When He closes a door, He's saying, "Trust me. You don't see it now, but you will thank me later." Sometimes the closed door is not about the opportunity. It's about the condition of your heart. God will close what you idolize. He will deny what distracts you from His presence. Because He's not interested in giving you comfort. He's interested in giving you Christ. Many of us pray for open doors, but few thank Him for the closed ones. Yet the closed doors are often the most merciful. They save you from people who would betray you, from places that would break you, from desires that would destroy you. When God closes the door, it's not the end of the story, it's the redirection of it. He's preparing a door that will not only open, but will glorify His name through your obedience. The key is not to panic in the hallway. Trust the one who holds the keys of David, who opens and no man shuts, who shuts and no man opens. Sometimes you stand before that door and cry, "Lord, why?" But He's whispering, "Because what's behind that door is not my best for you. You asked for my will. This is my will." Faith is not proven when the door opens. It's proven when it closes. When you can still worship, still trust, still say, "God, you are good," even when everything in you wanted that door to open. That's when heaven sees true faith. Beloved, there are doors you thought you needed that would have destroyed you. There are people you thought you couldn't live without, but God removed them to preserve your calling. The closed door was never punishment, it was preservation. God closes doors not to stop your journey, but to direct your steps. Because the same hand that closes one path will open another that leads straight to your purpose, a door that no man, no demon, no circumstance can shut. All this God turns your pain into purpose, Romans 8:28. And we know that all things work together for good to them that love God, to them who are the called according to His purpose, Romans 8:28. Pain, it's the universal language of every human soul. No one escapes it. It comes through betrayal, loss, sickness, and disappointment. And when it comes, it feels senseless, like shattered glass scattered on the floor of your life. But what looks like chaos to you is divine construction to God. The believer must understand that in the hands of a sovereign God, nothing is wasted. The same pain that tried to destroy you will become the platform God uses to reveal His glory. When Paul wrote these words in Romans 8:28, he wasn't writing from comfort, he was writing from suffering, beatings, imprisonment, shipwrecks, loneliness. Yet he said with unshakable confidence, all things work together for good. Notice, not some things, not most things. That means your pain, your tears, your regrets, your disappointments, all are being woven by the hand of God into something beautiful. But here's the truth. Pain in itself doesn't produce purpose. Surrender does. Many people suffer, but only those who give their pain to God find meaning in it. When you try to escape it, it breaks you. When you surrender it, it builds you. Joseph's story is a testimony of this truth. Betrayed by his brothers, sold into slavery, falsely accused, imprisoned. Pain followed him at every step, but at the end he stood before those same brothers and said, you meant evil against me, but God meant it for good. Genesis 50. That's the mystery of divine sovereignty. Man intends to wound, but God intends to work. The enemy strikes to destroy, but God turns that strike into strength. When you belong to God, pain is never wasted. It becomes a seed, and from that seed, fruit is born. Your suffering becomes a testimony. Your wounds become healing for others. You see, we want glory without the cross, but the pattern of the kingdom has always been crucifixion before resurrection. The path to purpose always runs through pain. Even Jesus learned obedience through suffering. Hebrews 5:8, the Son of God Himself was not spared the road of pain, yet out of that agony came the salvation of the world. So when pain visits your life, don't curse it. Let it draw you nearer to Christ. For it's in pain that you learn the depth of His comfort, the weight of His grace, and the reality of His presence. God does not waste what He allows. If He permitted pain, it's because purpose is hidden within it. Like fire purifies gold, pain purifies faith. It burns away the false hopes until all that remains is Christ Himself. The Apostle Paul once cried out, Lord, remove this thorn. But God replied, my grace is sufficient for thee, for my strength is made perfect in weakness. The very thorn Paul wanted gone was the tool God used to reveal His strength. Beloved, what if your deepest pain is the very soil where your greatest purpose will grow? What if the thing that broke you is the thing God will use to bless others? What if your tears are watering the ground for someone else's healing? Pain does not mean God has abandoned you. It means He's preparing you. The furnace of affliction is where God forges true faith. It's where the noise of the world dies and His whisper becomes enough. Every trial, every heartbreak, every unanswered question is being written into a story greater than your understanding. You see only the fragments, but God sees the whole mosaic. And one day when you look back, you will realize that every painful step was a part of His divine choreography. That what you thought was breaking you was actually building you for His purpose. And the fire you're walking through is refining, not destroying you. Isaiah 43:2. When you walk through the fire, you shall not be burned. Brother, when the fire surrounds you, it's easy to believe that God has left you there to perish. But the truth is, He's with you in the middle of it. The flames you feel are not sent to consume you, but to purify you. God uses the heat of trials to melt away everything that doesn't belong to Him in your heart. He allows the fire so that your faith, like gold, may be tested and proven genuine. Many cry, Lord, take the fire away. But God says, I'm in the fire with you. Remember the three in the furnace. The Son of God walked among them. The fire didn't destroy them. It destroyed their chains. When you belong to Him, even the flames bow to His authority. Your tears are not wasted. They're watering your next miracle. Psalm 56:8. You have kept count of my tossings. Put my tears in your bottle. Every tear that falls from your eyes is seen by God. He doesn't overlook your pain. He treasures it. Heaven has a record of your silent cries, your sleepless nights, your whispered prayers. The world may ignore them, but your Father gathers each tear as seed. Seed that will one day produce fruit of joy. Joseph wept in a prison before he wore a crown. Hannah wept in the temple before she held Samuel. Your tears are not signs of weakness. They are sacred language before God. Sometimes it is in your tears that faith speaks the loudest. Not through words, but through surrender. God will never let those tears fall to the ground in vain. Sometimes God removes people to protect your calling. John 15:2, every branch that bears fruit, He prunes, that it may bear more fruit. There are moments when God, in His mercy, begins to take people out of your life, not because they were evil, but because they could not walk with you where He is taking you. We often cling to relationships that comfort our flesh, but suffocate our spirit. The pruning hurts because it feels like loss, but in truth, it is divine protection. God knows the weight you can't carry into your next season. When He removes, it is not rejection, it is refinement. He separates you so He can sanctify you. Many of us pray for His will, yet resist His pruning. But the vine must be cut back to bear more fruit. Trust the hand that cuts. It's the same hand that created you. The cross reminds you, God can bring resurrection out of any tomb. John 11:25, Jesus said, I am the resurrection and the life. Every believer must pass through seasons that look like death, dreams buried, hope gone, faith trembling. Yet the cross stands as eternal proof that what dies in Christ never stays dead. The same Spirit that raised Jesus from the grave now lives in you. God often allows things to die so He can raise them in His glory, not yours. The tomb is not the end, it's the womb of new life. What you call over, God calls preparation. He waits until everything humanly possible has failed, so that when He speaks life, no man can boast. The resurrection power of Christ does not only raise the dead, it redeems the purpose behind every death. Now hear me closely, church. Everything we spoke today, from God's delay, His silence, from the fire to the tears, from the pruning to the resurrection, it all points to one truth. God is sovereign in your suffering. Nothing touches you that has not first passed through His hands. When God delays, it's because He's aligning your heart with His will. When He is silent, it's because He is speaking through circumstances that words cannot reach. When your heart breaks, it's because He is molding it into something that reflects His own. When people walk away, it's because He is clearing the stage for His glory. And when you stand before what seems dead, your dream, your joy, your hope, remember the cross. Remember the empty tomb. God can bring resurrection out of any grave because the power that raised Christ from the dead is still alive in you. You are not forgotten. You are not forsaken. The pruning, the pain, the pressure, they are not signs of abandonment, but of adoption. A father disciplines and shapes the child he loves. And right now, Yes, right now. God is fixing what you cannot. This is the moment where faith becomes real. Not when everything makes sense, but when you fall on your knees and whisper, even now, I trust you.